everyone. Myself Kumar, Assistant Professor, Government Engineering College, Karwar, and working in Civil Engineering Department. As a part of International FDP on Environmental and Sustainability, the week 2nd assignment, I am today going to discuss and share my view on EIA methodologies. So in today's presentation we are going to discuss various EIA methodologies, their pros and cons with an example. So in the last week I had uploaded one video, and the detail is as follows. So let's see what is EIA and methodologies. As you know, EIA is nothing but environmental impact assessment, which is very important in each and every project. So EIA methodology is an approach developed to identify, predict and value changes of an action. Actually, changes are reflected in the sequence of activities, steps, as well as the range of environmental issue considered. It may be a physical, chemical, biological, or maybe socio-economical or cultural or landscape values, anything it may be. The methods and techniques to use to quantify or to qualify, it may be a quantify or maybe qualify those changes, the changes which happens like physical or chemical, biological, etc. All aspects to variable can be measured. For that, it is known as, for that purpose we use the methodology. So the development of methodologies to assess impacts depend upon few parameters. Actually, the relationship between territory element and the specific measurements, the mitigation measures, etc., and the follow-up, what mitigation measures you take because of that project, and what type of follow-up you will do. See, each and every aspect will have their own objective. Like that, methodologies will also have their objective. The objective of methodology will be understand the nature and location of the project and possible alternative. For example, if you want to do a project for maybe a hydroelectric power plant, so we have to see what is the nature and location of the project and what is a possible alternative for that project or the location, so that we can compare it. Then identify factors of analysis and assessment, the objective, which parameter we have to assess and objectives. Then we have to do a preliminary identification and impact and scoping. For what will be the preliminary identification of impact? If we construct, for example, if we construct a dam, what will be the impact on the downstream side or the upstream side? That we have to see it. Then baseline studies, evaluation should be done. Then mitigation, prediction, then monitoring and impact management. These are the objective of methodology. So next one will be the focus of methodology. What should be the methodology? Should focus on what parameters? Like we should usually list of potential impacts, what type of usual common impact will be there in that project, and dynamic integrated group of natural and social system. Then impact over time and space. What will be the impact on the initial stage, at the middle stage and completion stage and working stage, and what will be the impact in the space at the, for example, if you do an hydroelectric constructed dam within the 1 kilometer, what will be the impact on ecology, what will be the impact on downstream side. Such parameters also we have to decide. And also there are several methods are available, but while choosing we have to consider few parameters. EIA methods range from simple to complex, And there are several methods, there are different data formats, varying levels of expertise, technologies, associations. So many things are there. So while choosing, we have to fulfill our requirement, like organize a large mass of heterogeneous data, allow summarization of the data we have to do, aggregate the data into smaller set with the least loss of information, display the raw data and derived information in a direct and relevant fashion, and target audience should also be considered. Example, if a target audience are not educated, then use a color code, size, cross, etc. should be used to rather that figure the table so they can easily understand. Usually if you speak generally, it should be simple and flexible. The criteria for selecting an EIA methods, there are 5 criteria are there. One is cost and time effectiveness, impact identification, assessment, measurement and communication. So EIA methods are classified into ad hoc, checklist, matrix, network, overlays, GIS and modeling. We will go one by one. So first one is ad hoc method. So ad hoc method is nothing but it is a simple method based on the subjective environment impact on both aspects, or we can say that it is a broad area of possible impact by listing composite environmental parameters. For example, if you are doing a project, then you have to study flora and fauna, and it also involves assembling our specialists to identify impact in their area of expertise. Each environmental area like soil, air, water, etc. taken separately, and a separate expert will observe and make a report separately, and nature of impact is predicted. Again, there are two types of impact. One is short-term or long-term impact, and second one is reversible and irreversible impact. And the types of ad hoc methods are opinion polls, expert opinion, and delphine methods. They usually use. They will use. For example, if 3 sites are there, we are constructing a project for a hydroelectric power plant. We will compare all the 3 parameters of that 3 different sites, and we will compare where which site have a more negative impact, which have a positive impact. Based on that, we will decide. If you see the advantage, all possible number of environmental components are listed here. As I told in the earlier lecture, flora and fauna, all whatever the possibilities are there, everything is listed, and it is very simple and easy to understand. And compare the requirement of alternative, because I am comparing 3 different, minimum 3 or other 4 5 different sites and location, and we will compare the possibility. Drawback: it may not be economical, it is inherently inefficient, it provides minimal guidance for impact analysis, and can never be replicated, thus difficult to review and criticize. That conclusion. Not good in organizing and presenting data. So these are the drawbacks we have. Next one is checklist. Checklists are standard list of type of impact associated with the particular type of project. All checklists have boxes or cells that must be filled with information about the nature of impact. The checklists are classified into simple checklist, descriptive, scaling checklist, and nowadays we will add one more thing. Scaling with a weighted checklist, we will give some weightage for each parameter. That is called a scaling weighted checklist. Next one is questionnaire checklist. So we are very familiar with the checklist, like a simple checklist descriptive, so I am not going in detail about that. So I am directly going for next parameters, that is what are the advantages. If you come to the advantage, as the name itself, we are going to collect each and every data and we will be having there like a list. So it is easy to us to compare the things at different levels and different parameters, and we'll have a reason and we'll have a proper feedback from the people will be getting which one have the impact, and they will answer the question. So it is as you say, it is in a systematic manner, it will be there, well structured approach, then relatively easy in comparison with the alternative option for a project, can be helpful in developing standards of checklists. And if it comes to the drawback, checklists do however have the potential to either be incomplete in their coverage, because whenever we see the questionnaire and all, sometimes we will not get a true data, it may be incomplete data. That time getting to a conclusion is difficult. In many times may cause cloud counting of the impacts. It may not indicate the likelihood of an impact or priority impact. So these are the drawbacks we have in the checklist. Matrix, we can say matrix or matrix method to identify interaction between various project action and environmental parameters and the components. Matrix are similar to checklist, that they use a tabular format for presenting the information, but however it is more complex and can be described as a two-dimensional checklist. The checklist and matrix can be differentiated, as the matrix has a strike in a box showing the impact, that is the matrix method. It incorporates a list of project activities with a checklist of environment component that might be affected by these activities. The matrix can be two types. One is a scaling matrix, next one is weighted matrix to quantify the impact of proposed activities. Again, the Lippert is the one pioneer in 1977 who discovered the Lippert matrix, and it's a variant. The column of the matrix component, the project correspond to project action, while the row represent the environmental conditions. Again, type of matrix are two types: simple matrix and significant. Simple interactive matrix and significant, or we can say importance related matrix. If you come to the advantages, early EIA process for scope the assessment, for identify the area that require future research, and for identifying interaction between project activities and specific environmental component. This is one of the best advantages, because I can see that which project had environmental impact or the environmental component, which specific component are in fact or affected by this, that can be observed. And if you come to the disadvantages, they tend to overlay simply impact pathways. They do not represent spatial or temporal conditions, and these are the actually the disadvantages we have. If you come to the next one, that is network method. It uses the matrix approach by extending it, take into account primary as well as the secondary impact. The network or systematic sequence approach of assessment is required a scientific thinking throughout of the potential impact on the environment with or without the project. Its identification of direct or indirect or short or long-term environmental impact is a crucial and intact major step of making impact tree. So So advantages, it is an integrated assessment instead of discipline by discipline. Interrelation between cause and effect, including indirect impacts, is the cumulative impact assessment because direct and indirect both and long and short term are noted there, can be translated into mathematical model for quantifying the judgment. The limitation like it will be a little bit complexity, difficult to distinguish and quantify the magnitude. No scores does not quantify the judgment, and it mainly focus on negative impact max. So that is the drawback here. Overlays may be used as identified as a geographic area where the environmental load or the sensibility of the environment to a load is high. So it is nothing but it involves use of different transparency to identify, predict and assign relative significance to a community, communicate impact in a larger geographical area. So composite overlays are usually used like user layers, like it is used older techniques, but the newer technique is GIS, Geographic Information System, is the upward version of the overlays. It's a flexible approach and can accommodate both qualitative and quantitative. But if it comes to the limitation, it's a skilled manpower is required and very comprehensive. The remote sensing is not an EIA methodology, but it's necessary for GIS. If you come to the is the sensing without being in a physical test of the objective, like camera, everything used. If you go to the sensors, there are two types of sensors they use. One is a passive sensor, next one is active sensors. Again, we can use the sensors by remotely and using different platforms. If you come to the one is aerial platform is there, then satellite or orbit we use, resolution are used. There are several different type of platforms are available, which will be available under remote sensing. I am not going in detail on that. GIS is an integrated system of computer, hardware, software and trained personnel linking topographic, demographic, utility, facility and image and other resource data that is geographically referred. So data will be available through the satellite that will be overlaid using the GIS and the software. The advantages, if you come, have potential for storing and accessing the large data. We can get the data of a remote place which where we cannot enter, and work will be progress very fast. Then can generate descriptive and analytical statistics, can generate map for output. So many commercial GIS are very expensive and require highly trained person. Actually GIS are not specifically structured for EIA work. There are a lot of physics work is going on, it should be done, and it is very expensive. So these are the drawback of GIS. Then if you come to the modeling method, modeling is an analytical tool which enables the quantification of impact which can affect the environment by simulating environmental conditions. Like that will is the mathematical or physical models where we will create a similar type of environmental condition and will measure the impact. A mathematical model lends itself to the spatial and temporal analysis of aspects of the environment. The prediction of impact models are like physical models, we have visual models, mathematical model and cartographical model. For example, models in environmental studies also we have different model like air quality model, water quality, noise, ecological and visual models. Again, for this it is very expensive, but we'll get accurate results, but we require a trained man and the softwares. So as I already told, the pros and cons of environment. If you see the checklist, first one, it is simple to understand and use, good for the site selection and priority setting, but do not distinguish between direct and indirect impacts, do not link action, etc. If you come to the matrix, it's link action to impact as a good method for EIA, but difficult to distinguish direct and indirect impact. Again, network will link action to impact and handles direct and indirect impact, but can become very complex if used beyond simplified version. If you use simplified version, it's very good, but if you use complex version, it will become a complex. Overlay is easy to understand, good display method and good setting tool, address only direct impact and do not address impact, duration and probability. GIS and computer expert system like the physical or mathematical models is excellent for impact identification and analysis, and good for experimenting, but heavy reliance on knowledge and data often, and a little bit expensive compared to other models. So as a part of FDP, I had covered in brief regarding the methodologies, and thank you for listening. If you have any query, kindly mail me. Thank you, on and on.